So the color palette for this project is pretty minimal considering how much is going on here. This is an interesting project. It was a 20, probably 20-foot screen that wrapped around an exterior outdoor space. And this project, because it was so large, it really is much reduced here, and many, many layers and a lot of typography, that the layer management was very important. So here we have text layers that can go on and off, the pipe system down at the bottom. There's the street in there, can go on and off. There's a part that's Brooklyn, and there's a part that's the city buildings, and the sky goes around the whole back. So when I was working on this project, I would lock many layers. So I would lock the sky very often. Another thing to show you when I blow this up is I filled this with a lot of texture. So this was the underground texture. There's a grass texture here. There were lots of textures. I'm not seeing so many right now. The other side of this panel had more textures in it than this side because this is so busy with all the city. But so putting textures in is a interesting challenge because it's you need the way this was done is you need to have a closed shape. So let me scale out of this for a moment, and I am going to grab a section of this and pull it down. So you see this is a section. It's got all these shapes, unique shapes. And within that, if I click in here, these are all individual shapes. And I've used a clipping mask, which I haven't taught you yet. And it's something that I will wait till next week to show you, to show you how to do, but I figured I'd just show you right now. So you have it in the back of your head. So I'm going to release this clipping mask. So you see here is a pattern and the color of it. Let me just make it a different color right now just so you can see it better on the screen. So let me make this in there and click just that and make this a different color and send this to let me ungroup it. So management of files, you can see, can be challenging. Okay, so let me get rid of this. So here you can see this was the shape that I was putting these this pattern into, and I wanted it to be an irregular shape. So I just kept taking these little stones, and I would take a bunch of them and copy and paste, and then I would take individual stones and move them to fill in spaces if it felt too open. But in some areas I liked it to be a little irregular. But you can see if you look closely that this stone are the same. This one is the same but flipped. So I would take a shape and just keep repeating it to create a pattern. So this is something that you may want to include in your image, and there are a couple different ways of doing patterns that I'm going to cover next week, but I want to introduce the concept to you because it's something that you want to have in the back of your head if you think you might want to do that. So actually I can see over here, this grass had a different pattern. So you can see that's the pattern that I made multiple tiles of to fit in there. So I love patterns. It's something that I really like to do in Illustrator, so something for you to think about. So there's patterns and then there's brushes, and I have posted a number of videos on brushes that you can play with, because if you want to work with brushes while you're drawing your shapes, this is the time that you would like to put brushes into your work. One thing I want to show you about brushes that you may, or I don't think you're going to see in those videos, so I'm going to show you this. So I've got my brush palette here, and I am going to take a calligraphy brush. Let's see if I have. So you can open different brushes. So I've got calligraphy brushes. So I'm going to say show calligraphy brushes. I feel like I just turned them off. Show calligraphy brushes. Okay. These are the calligraphy brushes up here with this odd shape. So if I click a brush type, so here I grab my brush, the type of brush, but the controls for brushes are over here. So there's my stroke. So I'm going to make it 3 points. And this one is uniform, but I can change it to a different way, and then you can play with opacity. So I'm going to now draw a line. Sorry, what am I doing? I am going to grab a brush and draw this shape. Okay, now I'm going to change that to a thicker weight. And so you see that can be a real chunky piece, and it is a line. So it just has that center line in it. The same with this has this center line in it. So one thing that you can do, you may or may not want to do, but I just want you to hear this, is to create a shape from this. And so it is going to be expand. Okay, so again, let me do that for you. Command Z. So you see it's one line that you can go in, and using the eyedropper, I could have changed it to a different thickness, but I want to keep this and I want it to actually be a shape, so I can go up to expand appearance in object, and so now it is actually a shape. So if I wanted to give it a stroke, which is kind of strange to give a stroke to a stroke, and then change this color to a different color, make it red. Let me give it a thicker stroke so you can see what I'm doing. So you can see that it's now a shape rather than a stroke. And so if I wanted to do something where I took a shape, and I've gotten rid of all those dots that I had here before. Let me grab them from here for a moment. I'm going to release my compound path. And so I am going to put this shape over top of here. I'm going to select them all, and I'm going to make a compound path. Didn't work. And it didn't work because I'm rushing a bit. I need to slow down because I have too many objects in here. I accidentally grabbed that couch, and there's this pattern and this. So let me put this shape over top, bring to front, over top of this pattern. If I select both and I go to Object, Clipping Mask, there you go. So I am going to do a demonstration of that clipping mask again next week, but I wanted you to see how the value of a closed shape, and the reason why I'm also bringing this up is when I reviewed some of your work, you were using the pen tool. Let me do a quick demonstration. So you might have drawn with the pen tool a shape, and you kind of got close to here, but you didn't get that circle there. Oh, look how nice and big those dots are now, the handles, now that I increase that. So this is, it looks like a full shape because the fill fills it in, but when I go to outline, you can see that it's actually not a closed shape. And so if I wanted to do what I just did with that clipping mask and fill that with something, it won't work. So you can go and drag over to endpoints and you can go to Object, Path, Join, and it will actually join them. There's kind of a funky kink in there. But so now if I wanted to go and do a clipping path like I did over here, where I bring the shape over top, arrange, make sure it's on top, and then I select the dots, my pattern, and that, and I go to clipping mask, make, you see those in that shape, which would not have happened if it wasn't a full clear shape, okay? So things to manage are your layers. So you want to label your layers. Your background, you may want to lock the way this is locked. You want your type possibly on a different layer. It depends on how you're working, but you may or may not. You wouldn't need this many layers, but they can help you manage your work. And I'm going to show you, if you click on this here, you can see your sub layers. And for now, I want you not to work in sub layers. It's just so confusing. If you need to send something to the front or to the back, it will stay going to the front or the back within your layer. So this clipping mask that I was just working on, these were all on that same layer. I was working on this land layer because you can't do certain things in between layers, okay? So you don't want too many layers because it can throw you off when you're trying to do things that are connecting on two different layers. But it's nice to have some layers. For example, your background. If you create a background, and you can see my sky is just a big blue box and some clouds. So having that locked helps me when I'm navigating and moving around, that I don't constantly pick up that background. Okay, so there's our house cleaning for today. I think that should keep you in a good place for the next week's work.